School committee meeting for January 7th. You have before you an agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Comments from the public? Seeing no one. Presentations and discussions of issues of interest to the committee. Innovation Pathways Report.
Hello, good evening. My name is Michael Horton, Director of Curriculum and Assessment for STEM, also the Assistant Principal of Cyrus Pierce Middle School. And on December 4th of 2019, three of us traveled up to Leominster, Mass. To meet with other school districts around the state who have been participating in the Innovation Pathway Grant, which I'll explain in a minute. Joining me was Shonda Bartlett, who is the high school Innovation Pathway teacher and test coordinator, and Pauline Proch, executive director of the Egan Maritime Institute and school committee member. It was a fascinating conference. We had breakout sessions, and really it comes down to the underlying theme was providing choice to high school students. It goes back to Barack Obama and Arne Duncan, Secretary of Education, talking about college and career readiness. Big focus on vocational technical programs, and something new that maybe Shonda can jump in a little bit about my career path, or MyCAP, which was something that I didn't really know about that I learned through this conference. I'm going to go through some quick slides. I know there's a lot in the agenda tonight, so I'm just going to touch on a few key ones and turn over to Shonda and Pauline to add in their takeaways. Before I do that, just a quick review. Nantucket was awarded $140,000 about a year and a half ago from a competitive grant that Kelly Cooney, Gene Witt, and myself wrote. We had $10,000 in startup money and another $139,900 to put forth basically expansion of innovative tracks for students in high school, and specifically underrepresented populations of students in high school. We chose the two sectors of healthcare and marine pathway. That's where Egan Maritime comes in as a supporter of the project. We did not coordinate with UMass Field Station, but that was part of it. We worked with the Tufts Medical Center and brought Dr. Melissa Ng here over the summer and kind of got students excited about healthcare. Dr. Lepre might remember that because there was a component of tick investigations. And you know that Jess Douglas started a nursing program here at the high school, and now that is run by Kelsey Perkins. The marine piece has been happening through field trips mostly this year, and we're on the verge of interviewing some applicants to add a marine technical course at Nantucket High School starting this year, semester 2. That's kind of a rewind of that project for the last year and a half that actually just ended on December 31st. So the timing of this was, okay, everyone to share their experiences, their takeaways, and also hear from the state of why they put this project out there in the first place, which now brings me to the slides. So Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education works a lot with the different workforce development offices around the state. They look at schools as creating the job force for the state, and they give fascinating information about how just right now is the first time in history that the age of residents in Massachusetts 65 plus is actually outnumbering the age of the group that runs 5 through 19. So that is a little bit alarming for some people in terms of who's going to be filling the jobs and positions across the Commonwealth over the next, let's see, they scheduled out about 15 years. At the same time, they do a lot of exit surveys of high school students, and this was almost jaw-dropping around the room when we learned that 34% of 12th graders say they're engaged in school. So only 34%. 32% of 11th graders say they learned something interesting during the past week of school. Again, a very low number that speaks to low student engagement in high school. 44% of 11th graders say they are excited about the future. So it's a little bit doom and gloomy, but keep in mind these are surveys that are given to students as they're kind of walking out of high school in the last year, which is a segue to this slide, which I'm going to explain because there's so much math going on here. I know I have limited time, but I get excited. Long story short, this is senioritis, okay? The blue line is younger students, 8th graders, 9th graders, 10th graders, that continue to make achievement, going back from 1956 all the way up to 2000. The green line are seniors. So what has happened in the last 30 years or so is that seniors, just from those quotes, are checking out a little bit in their last year of high school, or not reaching the same achievement that they had experienced when they were younger, or as engaged or excited about school as they were when they were younger. When we talk to principals, you kind of feel this a little bit as you follow students from 2nd grade to 5th grade to middle school into high school when they get excited about choice, and then when they start to get anxious about the future, this green dip, this green hump happens, which is just fascinating to me. And I could spend hours looking at this, but I know I don't have hours. What happens then is when you factor them together to all students, this green group of just 1 year, 17, 18-year-olds, is bringing that blue group down, okay? So when you put them together, that green dip is now bringing that orange gap. So if you see what's happening over time is it's starting to widen. And this is only through 2000. So I would love to see what it looks like from 2000 to 2019. Continuing with something that's not new to us, achievement gaps, racial achievement gaps, looking at different ethnic groups. This is nothing that's new to us and that we've addressed and talked about in some of our previous presentations. So what is the solution? Oh, sorry. Yep. Did I get a little? Yep. So the state is trying to come back to choice and trying to come back to how do we keep 16, 17, 18-year-olds excited about the future? How do we keep them engaged in the future? And the underlying theme of the entire day was offer more choices, offer innovative choices. The world is changing at an exponential rate. More technology, more industry, more opportunities to maybe not go into huge student debt, at age 19, 20 years old, but to go right into a career or earn a certain license or skill that can, lead to a promising career that someone's really excited about. This is where, Nantucket looks at nursing as a growing need here on the island with the construction of the new hospital, as well as the fact that if you talk to anyone in the marine industry, you cannot find a marine mechanic on this island in the summer, and the summer is very short. People will pretty much pay whatever to get their boat back in the water since it's only 8 weeks long. Skipping ahead, this is a very aggressive vision, I would say, by the state that they would like to see by 2027 that 50% of, at least, so more than half, or about half at least, 50% of high school students taking at least one vocational technical class. Whether it's culinary, whether it's woodshop, it does include computer science, okay, which is an industry of the future that we all know. Here it could be marine tech, here it could be nursing. When I gave this presentation to the Rotary Club not that long ago, Maurice Gibbs, Coast Guard Auxiliary, said, when I went to the Coffin School, 100% of Nantucket Island students took some type of carpentry or vocational technical course. It was a high school requirement. So it's fascinating that this is where the state is headed. with the future of vocational tech programs and why the Innovation Pathway grant was put out there about 2 years ago. I'm going to try to wrap it up. You have these slides in here. It's pretty much more of what I am saying. You can pretty much get the picture. I am available at the middle school office if anyone wants to come meet with me in person and discuss this further, because I'm very passionate about this. I have friends in the marine industry, and we have a workforce right here on this island that with the right training and skills can walk into pretty lucrative careers right out of high school. Do you want to talk about the whole MyCAP and students
Sure.
having control over their career?
So
choices?
the MyCAP is a structure that's put in place by the state, and it's really a guideline of what they see as the perfect structure for a school to follow for any and all students. We all went to 2 breakout sessions. I chose the MyCAP, which was paired with Worcester Public Schools. And this is actually required at Worcester Public Schools now. They pair it with their wellness class. So at Worcester, they take half of a semester of wellness, and then they take their college and career readiness class. 3 years. So it's more in depth. So they get like 30 weeks of college and career readiness. They're more, they have more paths than we do, and they're more creative. Like they have holistic health, they help students get their yoga instructor certificates, they're helping students get their CNA licenses, EMT, paramedic, so they're more broad than we are. The second breakout session that I went to was, I can't remember what it was called, but but it was called Strategic Thinking About Funding. So this was presented by Monument Mountain Regional High School, which is in Great Barrington, Massachusetts, Berkshire Hills District. His name's Sean Flynn. He's in charge of they call it the CVTE program, which stands for Career Vocational Technical Education. They are a technical school. They're very similar in size to us, the high school and middle school. Our elementary school is double them. We're much more diverse than they are. But they have 9 pathways.
Wow.
Yeah. So they have horticulture and sustainable agriculture. They have education. They have design and the arts. So art classes that includes computer, graphic design, photography, hospitality, which would be huge for us. So schools are really trying to be creative for their students to help all students succeed. I found Sean Flynn fascinating. Yeah, he's doing great work at that school.
And last but not least, Pauline, do you want to add anything that we missed or any of your takeaways?
I'm going to turn my back.
Sure.
Yeah. No, I just think that it was a great opportunity to go off island and hear the speakers and sort of reaffirm what we're already doing at the school with the Innovative Pathways program. I think there's a lot of things that we can continue to do. Unfortunately, the money is ending this year, so I know that Mike's trying to see if we can use some of the funding to help initiatives going into this year. But I think it's the way that we need to do this with our students is be able to provide them an opportunity to get licensing or some kind of certification before graduating high school and giving them options for vocational. So we're lucky. We were one of 5 districts that were awarded this grant. So I certainly sat in these meetings feeling very appreciative of being able to be sort of the lead in this. But thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions? Zona?
No questions for me. I just a comment. I think you hit on a lot of areas that touch Nantucket, and maybe that's something we should put on our strategic plan to see how we can expand on innovative pathways to include some of those things. I mean, Shonda mentioned quite a few areas that touch on us. We know it, and giving kids an opportunity. What we're seeing is, I feel, and it's just Zona's opinion, that there's a little bit of a decline in the college path for some, because kids are, those charts were showing, I'd like to see what the most recent years show,
Yeah.
but they're showing that, some kids feel schooled out, and they really are just over it. And college used to be on the forefront, but it's not as high on the chart as it used to be. Unfortunately, it's just the way of the world. What kids are more after is getting out of school and making money. We know that. That's everywhere. It's not just Nantucket. It's everywhere. Nobody wants to get out of college and have an entry-level paying job and struggle through paying student loans, paying for your new car that you have to have in order to get to work and things like that. So it's the mindset. And I think it would be in our best interest to go down this path a little bit more than we've gone in the past, just to provide different options. Because there are options. Some kids think that the only option is college or no college, but there are options. That's all I have to say.
Paul?
And we'll come.
Well, I think it's interesting. I mean, I can remember there was an aviation club.
Right.
I see the kids coming over to the hospital, and I think that's something that we do a pretty good job with. The Marine thing, I don't really understand, but I think that certainly is an opportunity. I mean, we've got kids at Mass Maritime that are being very, very successful. But I'd like to see us develop, I will say, for example, at the hospital, we have an emergency room group that we've hired. It's a whole other story. But they're very interested in upgrading and teaching our paramedics and EMTs. And I think that would be an opportunity right there to get them involved. Those are the things I think we really could develop fairly easily.
Yeah, just kind of piggybacking off Mrs. Butler, I feel like it's just totally awesome to give kids the option to not have to go to college. I know personally, like I wanted to go to college, but I know a lot of kids they don't do great in school, or they're not great at standardized testing, and it's just not really for them. They feel trapped in this path that they have to go to college. But if we were able to provide them with another way that wasn't like frowned upon, like it kind of is right now, not going to college, it definitely would help kids that go all the way through high school and then graduate on the right path.
One thing I forgot to mention was a lot of the Worcester Public School and the Monument Mountain, they're both introducing career investigation and career interests in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, which we're really not doing. We do have the Naviance program available at middle school, and I'm not sure how much it's being utilized. But those schools are really utilizing those programs. Those students are going into high school knowing all about Naviance, knowing how to use Naviance. And I find that our students do not know how. And I'm not sure if you all know what Naviance is, but it's a tool to learn about your career interests and investigating different schools and colleges and technical schools and career paths.
I agree. Opening up options
Right.
early
Yeah.
really makes a
Well,
difference.
just learning about yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
And Naviance is really, it is a strong tool if you use it. I just want to piggyback on Mr. Gibbs' comment is that, VOTEC course used to be a requirement. I remember back in that. And I find myself, even now, after college and children and life, still using some of those skills. So I do strongly support that.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. That's interesting.
Okay, school improvement plans.
So I'm just going to give a little intro,
Okay.
and then if we can have Kim and Kim come up and join us. I think we're going to start at the elementary school level. I think that Beth made some comments previously in talking about the district improvement plan. To let you know that the school improvement plans this year will be very similar in the template and how they appear to you in style. Each school has decided to identify different priority strategic initiatives, and they will address the focus areas that the school committee had identified a year ago. But you may not see one for every one. And I think that's important for you to know. It doesn't mean that they're not working on many of those other things, but the school improvement plan is perhaps narrower in focus. But don't lose sight of the fact that the school-related goals are aligned with the district improvement plan. And also, I think I would make the point that there are 4 different schools that address the needs of children at different developmental stages. So it's understandable that their focus will be a little bit different as they roll out the school improvement plans. And I think that's what I'll offer, and then they can speak for each of the schools. So, Kim and Kim. I think you're good, Joe. I think we have enough room. Yeah.
So the superintendent covered initially what I was going to start by saying. One thing that I would add is while we highlighted some of the initiatives, it doesn't mean we aren't doing all the other things. This is just where our school staff and our school council came together at least 2 times to select the initiatives that we felt would be our priorities. So it was a surprise for Kim to be coming up here. And
I think we had a request
Cozy.
earlier this year by the school committee to give the assistant principals a little airtime. Am I
great.
correct?
Would you like to do the whole thing?
No, I'm fine. Lovely to assist. Right
You're
here.
thrilled to be here.
Yeah. So if you turn to page 4 of ours, the first 3 pages are the same for all 4 of our schools. But these are the objectives that we're committed to in our daily work. And I, as a thinker and a learner, I need to start from a big picture and start to drill down from there. So these are the big objectives that we really ultimately want to accomplish. And they drive the work we do every single day. On page 5 is a lovely letter from us.
If you do say so.
Right. It's lovely. It starts with NES is a happy place to be, which it is. So our first initiative area of focus was to do the district data-driven protocol. And that is something that all 4 of our schools are working on. So we wanted to really highlight that here because it is affecting further work as we go through the year. So we took that initiative and then we set up our related goal. And so for our related goal, we are focusing on using that data-driven protocol to look at literacy, or reading, math, and then reading. Our hope is to, in each of those, set up a day where we look through all of the data, take the students as an entire grade level, I've spoken about this before, and then we're breaking them up into groups to provide what students need at that time. So we've done this already in September to do ELA, and we just came through the ELA, and I don't have it exact, but it is close to 85 to 90% of our kids made gains. Now, that may not have them proficient, but they made gains. And as I spoke to you about before, we are providing in that what I need now opportunities for kids who are already outperforming the grade level standards. And so we're providing some some additional work for them. We are readying right now the math to roll that out on the January 22nd half day. And then we'll set up our next round of RTI and that what I need now. We use the assessments that we have in place already. And in addition, teachers add to it with their formative and summative assessments to have a sense of what kind of mathematician a student is. They use anecdotal knowledge. We're doing math only one time, which I anticipate could have been a question, because this protocol that we're using is new. And we want to be skilled at it. So we did it first with literacy because we feel really confident in the benchmark assessments that we've had in place, and they provide a wealth of information. And so that would be easy for us to follow all the steps to get down to the 14 different groups we had getting support in first grade. So then we moved to math, and we had to pull a math assessment that we spent some time looking around trying to find one that would be standards aligned, not necessarily diagnostic or predictive, but a way to get us check on the standards. How are our kids doing on the standards at each grade level? So it is our hope next year, and we've talked about this in the past, to get a different assessment that will be done much like our Pontus and Pinnell benchmarks are done, or our Ames Web is done, a math assessment that we would do. And that could in fact be MAP, which is what the middle school's been using going along. The next initiative we selected is on page 7, and we combined two initiatives. One is to align the multi-tiered systems of support, intervention practices, and then we put in there the specific intention with SEL, that social and emotional learning. Certainly, if you want to jump in, please do. Underneath each of ours, we have what the benchmarks will be, how we will do the work, who will do it, and timeline. That's the same for everyone. We are now, we had a pretty strong RTI program going at the elementary school. When we were pre-K-5, we had a pretty strong RTI program, which is response to intervention. And every year we would tweak and tweak and tweak and try to make it better. This year it's in a fabulous setup, because we've sort of taken the MTSS stuff that people were learning last year, and we put it in place with ours and combined what works, and then added some other things to it. And so now what happens is we go through, and it's listed in our second box. Students are raised, we raise students in an area of concern 3 times in a PLC meeting. So weekly that happens. We raise students' concerns. And then you have your grade level team and administrators sitting at the table with you, and we brainstorm ways to support a child. And so the teacher takes a couple of things, goes back and tries that out. And once this child comes up 3 times there, and they've tried some things, research-based interventions, they've kept the data on this, they come back, they will then go to MTSS, which Kim is really chairing, and that happens weekly. Every Wednesday, that happens from 2:20 to 2:50, and they are going over significant data that teachers collect. Go ahead.
No, it seems to be really a nice flow and process for the teachers, because they are presenting a lot of data. So it's going from initially the teachers sort of brainstorming on their own, then brainstorming with their own team, and then going that next step to a more specialized team with other input before we're going to, it's not a straight referral process. It's more of a global look at a student of all areas. And it's been pretty effective, I feel. We've really come up with some great strategies, used lots of different point experts in our building, and really used a lot of different interventions. Collected a lot of data, which has been helpful to really know where we're going and what we really need to implement and work on.
So that's been really effective. for us. And certainly you can read on your own, but we break kids into what might whole supports need to be. And that would be that tier one. And we've spoken to you about the SEL classes that happen every week. So our guidance counselors go in every single week and follow a curricula to teach social emotional learning and skills for students in that realm every single week, and every child gets that. But then you'll start to see sometimes where somebody might be struggling more, and then you can break that down to tier 2, and that becomes a smaller group. And then you can go even further to tier 3, and you can be getting small group support and then individual support, and you pull in the social worker. But we do the same for the academics too, that everybody gets something, and then you break it down into the smaller groups, and then we can go as finite as individual. Next initiative is page 9, and this has to do with professional development and trying to meet the diverse need of our educators so that they can meet the diverse need of our students. So we have several things that we've had in place. Jean Tribuzzi comes to support our initiative with reading and writing workshop at the elementary school. She has been here in August, October, and May, and she also provides some emails back and forth if we ever need to. She's been wonderful to us, and that we're always able to reach out to her. But it's important that we have this to really know that we are doing the reading and writing workshop with fidelity, and that it is consistent across the grade level, that then vertically moves up to the grade levels above. And then Jean Marie will certainly speak about that as well. We've also had some PD on Accountable Talk with Mike Horton and Elise Gegline. And then in faculty meetings, EWD, PLCs, our staff have had some opportunity, not a ton. I was here asking at the budget for additional professional development money, but we do try to send our staff to, we keep a running list of who might like to go off to learn something new or go to professional development opportunities off island, and then they do come back and share that with their grade level team or the whole school in those various settings. Recruiting staff is always going to be a concern for us on Nantucket, and we do lots of work, evaluation work we do to certainly provide feedback to our exceptional teachers and let them know areas in which they can grow. And then we also are always seeking new support, because whether we start this work in September, we are still doing this work in August, whether we like it or not, unfortunately. Last year, we began in March, and we would do really thorough interviewing where we did paper screenings, and then we did phone interviews. Then we asked people to come for in-person interviews and to do demonstration lessons with us, follow up on references. And so it was very thorough, and we have a lot of fabulous new teachers. But that is important to help all of our students continue to grow and also to maintain the strong teachers that we have. So this is an area we will continue to focus on. I had the pleasure of participating in the Merck Teacher Recruitment Fair last year. That was BU? Yep. Okay, Boston University. And I intend to go again this year. It was a great opportunity. We did get a few new candidates come, and they made it through a few of our steps, just didn't get all the way to the end. Our final initiative is important to us, and I believe it's come up here with school committee as well, is to enhance the communication within our district and then to our community. As a school council, we've talked about this multiple times, and I know that you know this too. We have the Aspen emails. I do quarterly emails. Teachers do newsletters that are either weekly or monthly. We have our website. that Sarah Erickson maintains for the elementary school. We have our Facebook page. We have our Instagram page, and all the teachers are using Remind, and we have Remind that we use with staff. So all of these are the ways that we're sharing information. And we've heard from some of our parents, and we know this happens, that sometimes it's information overload, and that we want to start to really look at all the different ways we communicate. But as a council, it's our hope to put out a survey. So we're working on that for January and February to put out in March, collect the information back, and then put it into place. But our survey is going to largely be about how do you want to hear from us? And what is the most effective way for you to get the information from us? I neglected to say peace messages, because that certainly happens. So that is our hope for, or these are our most intensive initiatives for this year. Did I leave anything out? Do you want to add anything?
I think that covers it.
Thank you, Kim. That was quite thorough. I have no questions.
2 questions. When you're going through the process with the students going into the MTSS group, and when do at what point are the families involved, or are they notified that their child's been identified in the class?
So the teachers, when they're beginning the process, they speak to the parent first when they have their initial concern. And then they say, I'm going to bring this child to my team and start talking about your child because I have a concern. Or it may have come out of parent conferences. That's where we kind of had the first initial big hit with a lot of other parents coming in. But the parents are the initial, and then we start discussing them, and then they go forward, come in with the, there's a data checklist that they give to me, and then I make sure all the data is together before the larger team takes a peek.
And then the parents are kept in contact or communication with that. Great.
And
The classroom teacher is really the responsible one who is connecting and sharing the information of any of the data or any new strategies we might be implementing, like, for example, social groups or some RTI groups that we might be sharing for them to be in.
That's great, because I would think the parents also would be really key to reporting on behaviors or changes at home, that and also providing strategies from school that could be implemented at home. So that's
it
great.
often happens that way. Kim, as Kim said, the teacher is so critical in doing that communicating. They do it regularly. But then I would also add, should we end up needing to pull in the social worker to do a group, there is a parent notification that goes home that they need to sign and send back that they're allowing their child to participate. Should it move to requiring testing, there are all kinds of rules and regulations about getting consent for that, and that comes through the special ed office. So I would say they are involved the whole way through, and then hopefully to share the celebrations at the end with us too.
Remind me on PLC, I always think of professional learning communities when I hear that, but is that what that is with this? Oh, it is. Oh, all right.
And we call it PLC, and it serves multiple purposes because it is when our grade level teams meet. So we have that for every grade level. And then we also have the student support PLC, which includes more than the grade level. That's guidance and our student support center and our social worker and our behavior specialist. So it's an opportunity for like group people to come together and share information, to learn together, to support one another, to we calibrate scoring on our writing, we calibrate how we're going to think about our math assessments and how we might score those or where we'll weight those. So we call it a professional learning committee, but it's really a group that supports all of those things: learning, managing, teaching.
Great, thank you. And just one thought that came to mind in communication, I don't know if we already do it, but do we text parents, like doing mass texts to?
That's the Remind app for us. We have had some teachers doing, we've had lots of people who text and communicate. We're trying to discourage that private level of communication and rather use the Remind application because it is it keeps a separate phone number, and the families have opportunities to respond to the teacher, respond to the whole group. Teachers can send a message to the whole group or send specific messages to
But
certain
still on the
families.
phone.
Yes, and looks like a text, but
Yeah.
it is more private,
And
or less personal.
Is it trackable? I mean,
Yes,
it keeps records.
Yes, yes,
And can be received and sent in multiple languages.
right, translated.
Right, that's the key.
That was going to be my
Right.
next
Yeah.
unofficial question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it can be translated.
That's great.
And is. And
Yeah.
and we do see already that that's probably the more preferred way for communication, is that Remind app, because it does have the opportunity to be personal and really connected to the classroom when it grows a little bit bigger.
Right. Yeah, great. Thank you.
I'm just curious, in parent-teacher interactions, perhaps on a bigger scale than directly parent-teacher, but small groups of parents, are we doing that?
Like coffees, for
Yeah.
instance. Yeah. Yes. So we have those. We have moved from 10 a year to 10 at different times during the year to 8 to 5, because we are really seeing that there is not a great deal of participation in those. I know that I tried to do a couple at night, couple after school, keep some in the morning, different days, and it didn't seem to be changing. And I think that speaks to the economy. So many people are working. We do have small groups that meet probably for a specific purpose. So lip sync's going to start up and we'll have people coming in for lip sync. Or we do a big field trip and a certain grade level may come in to focus, have a discussion on that in particular.
No, I think that's always problematical. We set it up and then they don't come,
Yeah.
so.
Kim just did the whole ECAC work where she was trying to bring in families from who don't yet have kids in our school and trying to help them understand the pathway into. The most recent one was about being ready for kindergarten, but really trying to support our youngest babies on island and moving to the public schools.
It was great. We had 30 families. And we
Yeah.
used the ECAC and we had 15 in the childcare. It was great.
There'll be increasing the numbers of kids
You
in
bet.
school. Building a new school.
You will.
Do you have any questions, Joe?
So,
Sorry, no, thank you. Just awesome to see everyone getting the help that they need.
Try.
thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, NIS?
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Welcome. Good.
For those that don't know, I'm Eve Marie McNeil, principal, and this is Donna Johnson,
Hello.
assistant principal at NIS. And our school improvement plan is going to look very similar in format. As you'll notice, all of them look very similar. One thing that's a little different about ours, as you look at the Nantucket Public Schools mission page right there, at the bottom, Nantucket Intermediate School has articulated their own core values. Not that we don't subscribe to the district core values, of course we do, but it was important for us as a new staff 2 years ago to really begin the process of coming together and articulating our beliefs. And it actually took us a couple of years to come to consensus about those core values, and there they are. And it was really important to our staff that they reflect not only what we believe students need to grow and learn and reach their potential, but also staff. You'll notice it applies to students and staff, and that was driven by the staff. So those are there. So we wanted to share those with you. And every decision that we make should be in alignment with these values, and it's our hope to live these values. And our next step is to create a student-friendly version of these core values. And I think that we're on our way with school-wide rules developed by our students. On the next page, you'll see the district strategic objectives. And then our message to everybody about where we are and what we're proud of and where we're headed. And then we'll finally get to our NIS first related goal for our strategic initiative 1.1. NES had the same or initial goal. It's definitely related to our district goal. That's a priority this year of using district-wide data protocols to analyze student learning and achievement. And you can see how we are doing that. And we're really highly focused on doing that in looking at writing, students writing in response to reading and writing to explain their mathematical thinking is our focus for NIS based on our MCAS data and where we need to grow. So you can see below, I won't go through all of the pieces because I know you've had the opportunity to read this. You'll see all of the different ways that we are tackling that in addition to our formal data days. And I can say that you'll see this weekly happening, and when you go to grade level professional learning community meetings, you'll actually see many of these things occurring with regard to calibration of scoring and analysis of test results, and that's where we are with that. And then I'm gonna, in the interest of airtime, I guess you want to hear from Donna too. So she's gonna speak to our next two initiatives.
And I'm just gonna make sure, I'm
go
gonna
for
steal
it.
your notes to make sure
Yeah.
I hit all the points that we talked about. All right, so this one really marries very closely with the first one because with data we need to respond to it. So, and we do that by with teaching and learning. And that's really what this is about. So we are in year 2 of really some new curricular resources with ELA, which is Readers and Writers Workshop. While the teachers were using Writers Workshop, they're really coupled now together. We're seeing lesson planning and PLCs and talking about where we are in units and how students are responding and where we need to stretch, where we need to add, where we can take some things out. We're also continuing with year 3 of our Eureka adoption, and we're seeing teachers really using it as a resource and then trusting the data that they're gleaning from mid-module, end-of-module, exit tickets to really respond to the needs of their students using that resource and the standards. We're definitely, like Eve Marie said, our goals talk a lot about responses to reading because we saw from MCAS that was a need. So teachers are continuing to work on building assessments that are that have the same rigor and demand of MCAS, and then working together to collaborate, score, determine who needs small group boosts to move them up, and who's already there and can extend. We've worked a lot on pacing to make sure that we're getting it all in, because it says we have 180 days, but we know that can get chipped away at. So where do we really see we need to spend the most time, and how are we pacing that? And then really our next step is, how are we looking at that vertically? If fractions comes at the end of every single math year, is it possible that we need to put fractions someplace else so kids aren't missing very much of that through 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade? So there's been a lot of work done with pacing in both ELA and math, and teachers then are creating assessment calendars to kind of measure the effectiveness of that instruction along the way and having conversations about that. Did I hit them all?
Yeah, you did great.
Okay. You want me to do the next one too?
Yes, please.
Okay. So the next one is very similar to NES, and it is really exciting to have this vertical partnership with NES when we're talking about not only curricular resources, but how we're really responding to the needs of students. So how we respond to students, the acronyms have changed a lot through the years. So we used to say child study, then response to intervention. Now the focus term is multi-tiered system of support. So when we think about tiers of support, if we have 3 tiers or 4 tiers, I think about tier 1, like it's cold, so we turn up the thermostat for all students in the room. So that would be our tier 1 solution to that problem. But then if we still see that this little group over here is still a little chilly, maybe we give them all a blanket. And then tier 3, well, he's still shivering cold, so he gets the big Canada Goose jacket. So we think about education in the same way. So what we've done is designed an MTSS team. We've dedicated in our schedule time for this team to meet. It's every Monday from 2 to 2:50. And on that team, we have our interventionists, our guidance counselor, classroom teachers, our school psychologist, and administrators. And what we're doing, much like Kim Albertson said, is we're really looking at the data that has been presented from a teacher with parent contact in there, and really honing in on what we think the hypothesis of the actual, like way down at the bottom, where do we need to intervene, and see whether we can show growth, and come back regularly to see if there's growth, whether we need to change our plan, make our plan a little bit more intensive, or seek more information through a referral to get a special ed evaluation. So so far we have we've had a pretty full docket, and we are seeing kids show improvement. Some of the children may be seen by the interventionist, and they get regular feedback from those interventionists on the progress of this is their goal and this is where they are with that. Some are social-emotional referrals that we're getting. So it's what types of groups do we need to do? How do we partner with outside agencies and get the parent in to make sure that we're supporting the child in every way that we can? We are part of the S3 Academy, which was a grant that Michelle Brady applied for and got last year, and we are working to strengthen even further how our efficiency with MTSS, with SEL, and how we're responding to students in a really holistic way.
Thanks, Donna.
Yeah.
I wanted Donna to speak to that one because she didn't let you know that she has taken the lead on this, similar to Kim Albertson at NIS, and our system is established and running so effectively, and I just want to give her credit where credit is due. And then our next initiative aligns, partly overlaps, right?
Yeah.
Everything sort of overlaps. It's focused on our social-emotional learning, and year to year, our needs seem to be increasing in this area. And it is also our second year of refining our options program in a big way. And this year, we've also, our staff has, reflected on our draft and asked me to come back and make sure that we note how our tier 2, our students who need the blankets, are being served, because sometimes our students who have the highest need are demanding all of our resources. Not surprising to you, since I came and asked for a 0.5 more social worker, just so we don't, those students who are needing that blanket, who are tier 2, are not falling through the cracks. Because there are days that I think that they don't get to see the counselor that they need to, because the counselor is so busy helping with the students that are demanding our time and attention on a given day. But you can, so this isn't really a new goal, it's just a further refined goal for us in alignment with the district goal. And then I think we do have a new goal coming up. Yes, so our next goal is in alignment with 2.6, clear expectations, action, and supports for appropriate student conduct in the classroom and beyond. I think this too is more of a staff-driven goal, in the hopes that we can really tighten up and articulate well what our protocols are when students are having a difficult time, so we can all respond consistently. That's so important across the school, that we are responding to students in the same way and in a consistent way. And I think it makes sense. Coming together as a new school, there were so many priorities that it takes a while to say, you know what, we do need school-wide rules. We have classroom rules, we always have, and this year we followed a responsive classroom process to go from school-wide classroom rules to grade level rules to school-wide rules. Our assembly's Friday. If you want to come, the students are presenting out on these school-wide rules that they have come up with, which is really exciting. And that's just one example of really delineating what is expected, and so we can all become consistent and live those. And then finally, I think this is the last one. We want to continue our focus. So it's not a new goal, but it's a refined goal to strengthen our partnerships with parents and families. You can see our focus is really on increasing frequency of contact and collaboration, and also the cultural proficiency with regard to those communications and or events. We really know that our parents are our partners. We can't do it without them. And though we say that and articulate that, I think there's always more we can do to try to attempt to bring families in and to see themselves reflected throughout our school, students included. So we'll let you ask us questions about any or all of these.
I have, I think, a twofold-ish question. You guys are one of the first schools to be in the middle. When I say middle, we're talking about vertical work, because you merge between the elementary and then you merge between the CPS.
Yep.
Which end of that spectrum is the toughest?
You mean with regard to our
Transitions
between the schools.
Oh,
I would say just only because it looks different and parents get more nervous. The transition from 5th grade to 6th grade is the bigger transition. The school is across the way, so geographically it's in a different spot. They don't see it. They haven't seen it. They haven't been over as much as like we've gone. NES has come over to NIS, and the other part is parents worry a lot more about that transition. They seem to worry about the structure being different. My child's now going to be switching teachers.
one teacher to 6. or
Yeah,
7.
it's all a whole host of reasons, and our kids developmentally just tend to be much more self-conscious at that age and much more concerned about how they will be perceived.
Right.
And so that transition's a little bit harder for them. I think they care less. 2nd to 3rd grade, they're not really thinking that way. Would you say anything else in addition?
No, I think
to
I think
having
that the
experienced it
structure
here?
of middle school is so very different than the structure of 5th grade that transition, I think, for students is probably more
scarier.
difficult than just coming across from 2nd
Across
grade to
the
3rd
patio.
grade.
I would agree with that for sure. And I like your reference to the Canada Goose jacket.
Yeah.
They're really nice, by the way.
Oh, I wouldn't know.
I'm good.
Just one question. When you were talking about the school climate, do you provide trainings for like your custodians and your lunch staff, and so that everybody in the building is aware of protocols or behaviors so that they can intervene?
Sure, that's a really great question. Unfortunately, they're not part of our staff meetings, our EWDs. They're working, or as a shift change, or if it's our lunch staff, they're not there at the end of the day. One thing that we hope is that every single member of our community reads our weekly update, because our reflections often are in direct response to climate and culture and expectations of our school. In addition to that, there are a ton of resources in there that we hope they'll avail themselves of. For example, we just had an audit, a responsive classroom audit done by a consultant right before the break, and shared that the results of that, the report itself, with all staff through the weekly update. So that's available to everybody. But we could probably do a better job of including everyone.
Just was sort of thinking that in all of our schools, I mean, our custodians and our lunch staff, I mean, they're so critical because they're around our students all day. So.
Sure.
And our bus drivers. Just a thought. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Joel?
I had a question. So you said, was it this Friday the kids they're presenting about the rules?
Yeah.
What are they presenting exactly? Like, what was the?
So what they did was it started at grade levels for grade level rules. So there were
Well,
kind of
classroom, really.
classroom rules start the first week, and then there were delegates from each classroom to create grade level rules. And then those delegates came together, we've met a few times now, to really kind of look and mesh and what does this really mean? Do we combine this? So they've come up with 5 rules, and they've begun to brainstorm what those mean, what they look like, sound like, feel like. So they've done they have 5 rules with a lot of what this looks like, and they're specific underneath. So what we're doing tomorrow morning is working with them on how to best present this and make sure that everyone in the school is aware of these rules. So it's really interesting and fun for them to really kind of argue about what does integrity mean. I mean, these are like our elementary kids, and they're on it, and they want the rest of us to be on it as well. So.
That's awesome.
It teaches leadership skills and ownership. I think that's wonderful.
And public speaking.
And collaboration, like
Yeah.
your idea might not be
So what time is the assembly?
8:35.
on Friday.
And
Yeah,
this is
on
an open
Friday.
invitation?
Yeah, of
Oh,
course.
Okay.
Yep. And
No, I,
That was nice. Segue
we
into
use
that.
a responsive classroom format, so you'll see like what a morning meeting would look like, except it'll be a school-wide meeting. So there'll
how
be
often do you have your
reading.
school-wide assemblies?
We haven't had them enough this year, quite frankly. But we have a responsive classroom committee now, so we're excited that we'll have them more frequently. We're trying to, with our committee work, share the load and responsibilities, and honestly have more teacher voice in how our school operates.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Cyrus Pierce.
Hi, thank you.
Hi, Julie, Jamie, Michael. Hi, everybody. Hi.
So, first time presenting, so thank you for the opportunity. I want to echo what Mike said and what Kim said and Eve Marie said about connecting our school improvement plan with the district improvement plan, school council and staff pulling out these objectives or strategic objectives and initiatives that were important, and focus in on specific ones. It's a comprehensive all of these are comprehensive. We understand that completely as you've read. But these are the goals that we feel will impact student learning and growth. You'll see some of the early evidence benchmarks have been ongoing in the past 4 months, and then some we will just be starting in January. So take note of that as well. And you will see some vertical alignment connected with Eve Marie, and I'm sure when you see John's, there's some with transitioning and so forth. So as we go on to starting with Cyrus Pierce in our goal 1, I wanted to just highlight our goal, obviously, as we all have the goal in this district, is to improve student learning and achievement. So we took a couple of process benchmarks talking about using complex texts, requiring students to identify and use evidence. As you can see, this is an ongoing goal that I have noticed from the beginning, my first few weeks here at Cyrus Pierce. I am seeing the language that is common throughout grades and content areas. For instance, CER, claim evidence reasoning in the 6th grade, writing class all the way up to 7th grade in science, into 8th grade. So these are some things that have been ongoing, which is so important. And the complexity of text, Edgar Allan Poe in 7th grade, Knight, Elie Wiesel in 8th grade. I mean, these are complex texts and real analysis of language, so important for our students. And then again, on that second benchmark, I wanted to highlight the challenging tasks and productive struggle, so that students are working with the appropriate level of rigor. As we know, standards-based instruction is key to this. So we're including active student participation in those high-impact pedagogical practices, such as the turn and talks, the discourse, academic discourse about what they're learning, intentional feedback to each other, as well as individual from teacher to student, so forth. Mr. Horton is sitting right next to me, math curriculum, STEM coordinator. I mean, we're so blessed at CPS to have Mr. Horton with us to help with these in standards-based instruction and pedagogical practices, so that we can work together as an admin team and as a staff to really strengthen our practice. I added a little note here to vertical alignment with NIS in these first two. Sixth grade does Readers and Writers Workshop. That is a nice continuation from NIS. And our Open Up is Eureka Math as well.
Illustrative math.
Thank you. Illustrative math is what we're using, which connects to Eureka Math. Second goal, CPS goal. And again, guys, anytime you want to jump in, please let me know. Please do so. CPS goal number 2, scheduling matrix. We had difficulty at the beginning of the year. It is no secret.
About?
So staff really felt that, and admin felt that this was an important need to ensure that doesn't happen again. So we have been working on some things from October, literally July, but still working through September, October, November, December, to identify strengths and areas of improvement, so that we create a matrix that will provide adequate instructional time for content, as well as remediation and support, as well as what Mike was talking about with innovative pathways. And I feel staff feel strongly about student choice in having a choice in what they would like to do for their encore subjects, et cetera, our specialist subjects. One of the main goals here, which is number 3, re-implement on page 9, re-implement team and department collaboration. That there is team time, though our staff wants to really ensure that there is curriculum planning time for content area, as well as has happened in the past. So we wanted to include that in. And also just remind you that teachers are part of a scheduling committee, and surveys for feedback for priorities have already been gone out to staff. We have had scheduling committee meetings since October, and we're moving now into another meeting this week. And we are working with Aspen Follett in order to build a matrix that is sound, so when hopefully June 1st comes, teachers get their schedules, we're ready, students are basically placed in, so teachers know where they're going to be when they return to school. Want to talk about trauma and SEL?
I would love to talk about that.
Alice Cohen and,
Yes, absolutely. So our third goal, which is aligned to our district plan, looking at options for increasing the options for social emotional learning for our students. In particular, adolescents in middle school at this particular time in their developmental stage, they're going through an enormous amount of change internally and externally, and that can contribute to a certain amount of extra anxiety that they may carry around They're also increasing their awareness about themselves and how they connect with their peers. They're also noticing an awful lot about the world around them. I unfortunately had to have a little intervention with a young man earlier today who was having some anxiety about what he had read about in the news and regarding Iran that morning, and he was having a difficult time going to class. And so one of the wonderful things that we were able to do to support our students with the challenges that they have at this particular developmental level, and also with the world around us, is we were able to get Alice Cohen, who is a social emotional coordinator for the District of Cambridge Public Schools. Our wonderful social worker, Becky Cressy, was able to work with her, in particular after our lockdown in the fall, and we were able to get a contract with her, and she came for one of our professional development days and really went through the biology of trauma and specifically how it impacts adolescents and what their brain structure is like, and how if they are flooded with cortisol, how that does not only impact their ability to function, but also to learn in a classroom. And what are some things that our staff members can do to make sure that the students are able to de-escalate and be able to learn, but also to prevent or try and mitigate any secondary trauma that can happen to the staff members when they do see children that are in crisis.
I want to touch on what Donna said. I love the metaphor with the we need a blanket. So that's another piece of this with that Alice has talked about in strategies and helping teachers have tier 1 strategies, which is, as Donna said, when you have the cold weather, you turn up the heat so that everyone feels it. And but then within the classroom, how do you do that? So you might have a chill zone in your classroom for a student who might not need to be removed from the class, yet needs to go to that quiet section of that class and still be attentive to the happenings in the class, but just take that time for themselves. And also possibly move on to the next tier 2, where the one-on-one comes in with a counselor, an administrator at that time, whatever's needed. I also wanted to, on the second Create and Implement School Culture and Climate team, listening to Eve Marie and talking about responsive classroom, as you'll see, that also comes down in one of our goals in process benchmarks is to somehow implement responsive classroom in the middle school. Again, that vertical alignment piece. And I wanted to look at that page 11 in that second section where it talks about the school culture and climate team, working with student council for positive events, updating student handbook, and then on the next page, developing CPS school-wide expectations, like NIS did with their core values, again, so that CPS has the foundation for the next step of really creating that positive school culture.
And also to help with the consistency, because as it was mentioned, transitioning to the middle school can be very difficult for students and parents, and also at that level, our kids are going through a tremendous amount of change. So the more consistency that we can provide them, the better that they will be able to adapt to a new school.
Finally, goal 4, strengthen two-way communication with families. Again, welcoming school climate, increasing school-based events, bring families together with staff members, encouraging interactions. And, middle level philosophy, we talked about developmental stages of the schools. And some people feel middle level is this, our kids are old enough, they can babysit, they can take care of themselves. Where in fact, middle level research shows it is the most important time for supervision and engagement with adults, because they're going through so much complex change that adult guidance and supervision is imperative. So some of our benchmarks are obviously based on that as well. Showcase, expand student learning experiences, engaging family and community partners. One, I think this is so important. Implement lunch talks, asking community members to join students during lunch times. We are just working this out. For example, having the harbor master come in and talk about what she does to potentially build the pathway, or Miss Beal, who's a 6th grade math teacher who was actually a student at our school, to talk to our students about what it was like when she was a middle school student, because she's kind of close to that age, how she went through the high school, went to college, became a teacher, came back. So potentially having some of our teachers and staff be involved in those lunch talks so that students can see community members monthly. So I'm hoping to do a monthly lunch talk starting in January. Also, acknowledge those positive behaviors, and it's just so important to make those phone calls home and talk about the positives, and so many of the staff do it, and just to keep moving with that and strengthen that as much as we might need to make negative phone calls, and teachers might need to inform parents of negative behaviors, really using the time to reach out and make those positive phone calls as well. Kim spoke of Remind app, which is so important to her staff, and absolutely same. I find that Latino families in my previous district really liked the Remind app and the texts. That was part of their culture as well. So those are things that we're using there, and just providing opportunities for parents to see community members. So student-led conferences, we had the Nantucket Family Resource Center come to our student-led conferences and pass out flyers and talk about what their programs are looking like in the winter months. Thursdays, they're having teen talks so that starting in January, so that they have opportunity for Thursdays so parents can drop in and talk about what's on your mind with raising teens, etc. So again, Jen and her staff has been wonderful, set up for IT support during our student-led conferences or open house to provide that Aspen information that they might need. Kelly and her staff provided translators for us to provide for that. So just increasing and strengthening communication and family community engagement.
Just taking an extension from the success of student-led conferences back in December, getting parents to come into the building during the evenings. I'll put in a plug. A week from tonight, grade 7 is having their exhibition.
Thank you for that. Yep.
For different projects. So I think I noticed you might have an executive session or something going on. So if you're here or in the neighborhood from 5 to 7 p.m. a week from tonight, grade 7 teachers are having students showcase what they've been working on in all their classrooms. I know grade 6 has something planned as well, so be on the lookout for that. And then we have Parent University, Title I funded MCAS prep program that has been very successful at NIS. We are expanding that to CPS for evening tutoring around
Bless
food.
you.
And whenever you can get students in the school at night, and you have different restaurants sponsor the food and Nantucket Rotary Club members serve it, there tends to be a nice positive buzz. We extend it to parents, and they can come in and ask questions about, what is that illustrative math? That's not exactly the way I learned long division. I'd like to see it visually, planned out. So that is something that we hope to have up and running by the end of this month as well.
Thank you all for the presentation. I appreciate, Julie, you mentioning the scheduling fiasco a little bit. So
That's a good
hopefully
word, fiasco.
that's the last we'll hear of that. And also the example you gave, Jamie, of the student getting support. There's a lot in our news these days. There are a lot of stressful topics, and if adults can be stressed by it, can you imagine a kid who doesn't even know how to handle his or her acne and boyfriends and girlfriends and all that social emotional stuff that comes along with getting older? I think it's important that we have the support that you've mentioned, especially in this day and age. So thank you for that. I really, really appreciate it. And Mike, for all the work you do. So thank you.
No, thank you. It's great to have all three of you up here. I have to say that there's a special place in my heart for any adult that chooses to work in middle school. I think out of all of our schools, you are working with students that are in the most disruptive phase, just because they're coming in and transitioning in 6th grade and transitioning again in 8th grade, and let's hope everything goes smoothly in 7th grade. But they're growing so much physically and emotionally, and it's really challenging. But I think to continue with the consistency, communication, supportive and understanding of the child development in your schools is just key. And I love that you've implementing the parent university, because I think you still have your parents at middle school, even though the students might be fighting against it and thinking they don't. You still have that connection with parents, and I think having been the other side of that now, that is the critical time of really continuing to keep parents together and communicating with teachers and knowing how to communicate with their students. So, thank you.
Joel?
I was wondering what the lunch talks are gonna look like. Like, is it gonna be like in the cafeteria and like, or?
Good point.
Will you come?
Oh, maybe we need a
That would
senior
be
to come.
great. They would love that.
So we were just discussing in December what that might look like. I have seen where it is a specific amount where you might want to join. The homeroom teacher might present, hey, we're having a lunch talk tomorrow. It's going to be Joel McVicker, a senior, who's going to talk about how he's gone through the Nantucket Public Schools. If you're interested in hearing about his road to it, his education, his athletic prowess, his goals for career and beyond college. So homeroom teachers would help us with that, and then put it into a specific place. The cafeteria, I don't know about you, Joel, but 156 graders and you talking might not be effective. So we're thinking in a classroom at first, see how it goes, and move on from there. So I'm thinking we have 2 lunches, so half hour, students go get their lunch, and then they come back. That's what we're thinking. Excellent question.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you very much.
Drum roll.
Semester coursework. See if we can get the sharp pen.
So she doesn't stab it.
So I will echo the comment of my colleague at the elementary school. The 11th hour inclusion of our assistant principal came as somewhat of a surprise, but Ms. Sarah Dellis is unflappable. She has offered to do an interpretive dance section of the school improvement plan at the high school.
We knew she'd be ready.
She's never shied away from a microphone, so I'm pleased to have her join me. The privilege of going last, or the joy of going last, is you have heard many of the comments, so we will jump. We also have a very lovely welcome letter. On page 4, we have the vision of a graduate work that we have been working on for NEASC, and so you will see that incorporated in some of the school improvement plan goals at the high school. On 5, the strategic objectives for the district. 6 is the welcome letter that Ms. Sarah Dellis and I wrote, introducing our school improvement plan, which includes some of the data points. If you recall, historically, we have had a 3-year school improvement plan that was pretty data heavy, and so we didn't want to lose some of those elements as we were in the 3rd year of that plan, so we have tried to incorporate that information into the welcome letter. Goal 1, a lot of this dovetails nicely with the work that we did for the collaborative conference and NEASC. And so having the district improvement plan and being able to align school improvement plan goals that will necessarily need to be included in a school improvement plan for NEASC is really kind of getting a jump start on the process for us at the high school. So the district initiative 1.2, the high school related goal is using the information that we got through the collaborative conference to do curriculum work with UBD across departments and vertically with CPS. As will come as no surprise to you, that transition year from grade 8 to 9 has been a conversation point for us for the last couple years. I'm really pleased with the work that Julie and I have been able to start to kind of lessen that jumping off the cliff, if you will, and smooth that transition. Some of the stuff we have already accomplished. We did some curriculum inventory work in the fall. We developed the vision of a graduate template that feeds nicely into a curriculum mapping that we had with UBD originally. We had a presenter come for the December early release day because as with any staff, you have people that UBD means a lot to them and they enjoy the work and it comes very easily, and other people that are not sure exactly what UBD stands for. So it was a nice presentation in December to kind of remind people and to educate people that needed that primer on what UBD work is all about. I did talk about the alignment from 6-12. We're hoping to incorporate some days this spring where departments will be able to meet vertically with Julie's staff. So the English department getting together 6-12, science, math, social studies.
Yes, I'll talk about the next goal. And so this goal really is to coordinate school-wide plans and systems to support students both in their academic and social emotional needs, really for all students. And as you well know, at the high school we have lots of systems of support for students, including our options program, our educational success program. Our school social worker, Julie Kingston, has a large caseload, as well as our 3 school counselors. So really coordinating all those efforts into a streamlined system to identify student needs, whether they be academic or social emotional needs. We have a student support team, so our SST meets every other week at from 10 to 10:50. I lead that group. It includes a wide variety of our student support team, including our SRO, our school nurse, social worker, school psychologist, special ed liaison, and Andrew Vaselli and his program, and we have a teacher representative as well. So we get together, and during those times we identify students who are coming to the surface, either referred to us by teachers, sometimes parents have called with concerns for their student, sometimes they're showing up in my office and I'm putting together data points that says maybe something's going on for this student, or they've been seeing Julie Kingston. So we bring those students to the table to really talk about what systems of support would be best for them, what plans and programs would be best for them, accommodations would be best for them, and then who is going to put those systems in place, who will follow through with that student, who's communicating with the parents, who's communicating with the teachers regarding that plan that's decided upon and the progress that's then being monitored and made for that student. So that's our student support team. We're going to continue to work on that as we go through the year. What we would like to really work on at the high school level is our MTSS system. Luckily, because the elementary and the intermediate and the middle school do such a good job identifying student needs at that early level, their systems of support are very heavy. Their interventionists are predominantly at the elementary school level, where they're getting that early intervention for those students. At the high school, ideally, many of the areas of concern have already been identified and students have been receiving supports as they've moved along the way. As you well know, in the high school, we do get lots of students who come in at the high school level who have not been in our school district, who have had varying levels of support or perhaps none at all. Many of those students are our L students, and so we really want to focus on how we best support those students who have not grown up in our district, who have not had already identified issues, and then trying to tease out the difference between it being a language barrier or something else that we need to consider. So the MTSS is what my team is focusing on this year in creating a streamlined system that vertically aligns with the other 3 schools on how do we identify the mostly academic concerns. I think we do a really good job at the high school when social emotional concerns up, but the academic concerns, and then who is tracking that data, who is deciding what the tier 1 supports will be, deciding now tier 2 supports need to be put in place or tier 3 supports. So I have reached out to the other schools. I have now brought to the SST their MTSS system so that we can look at that and then try to vertically align what that will look like at the high school level in alignment with the other schools.
More blankets and coats at the high school. So 2.2, the strategic initiative, the aligned goal for the high school is really about guidance curricula in our advisory program. In what Ms. Saradellis just presented and this goal, we've been doing a lot of good work informally. And so this is formalizing some of that work. And so through the collaborative conference, they said, your guidance counselors do these class meetings, but you don't have an articulated scope and sequence for a guidance curricula. So taking some of the work that the guidance counselors have been doing, since we have freed them up, so to speak, from testing coordination, which Ms. Bartlett now picks up, and some of the giving them more opportunity to connect with kids. So this goal is all about guidance and how we formalize the processes. So taking the vision of a graduate, our student-led conferences are coming up in January. So that'll be right around the midterm. So January 22nd will be student-led conferences. They'll be taking that vision of a graduate and providing work samples for how they're achieving in different classes those articulated vision of a graduate skills. Guidance is also tracking as a departmental goal their time with students. So that end of the year meeting or the presentation that they have with the school committee, they will be able to provide you much more quantitative data about how often they're meeting with students and what about. Goal 4.1 is aligned to the high school goal of improving programming for students and families that better attend to unique learning needs and profiles. As I gave in the budget presentation, we're looking at adding a staff member to the IDSC to work with that population of students who are quote unquote aging out of the traditional 9 to 12 curriculum that we've been providing. We're working on our foundations courses. We had 3 foundations teachers last year. All 3 of them are new this year. And so I would say that we are continuing to build that foundations curricula as it's being deployed. And so that's a goal for us to further develop foundations courses, and then those students who come in with limited or interrupted formal education. It is not rare, unfortunately, for us to enroll students at the high school who may have been in their home country in the 5th grade. And so they're coming to us at 17, 18, 19 years old with literacy and numeracy skills that you would see at the intermediate level. So working for programming for those students who are chronologically high school students, but academically much lower. We'd like to expand the work that we do with the LPAC and SNAC and improve the understanding of parents as to what is expected of them through partnership. We have added a bilingual TA this year, which I think has been great with outreach to our L families. And then finally, similar to other, I think each of the other schools has had this in their school improvement plan, opportunities for students, families, and teachers to be involved beyond the school day and within the school day. We have in the collective bargaining agreement where educators need to do 2 evening programs. And so I'm not sure that we have been great about tracking that. And so this Thursday is a great example of one of those where we have the Wintertide Arts Festival, and that's such a great collaboration of interdisciplinary, where our vocational students are involved, our music students are involved, our art students are involved, woodshop students, and then we end the night with the English department in the Poetry Out Loud competition. But those opportunities to bring in students and families from very different areas of the curriculum and to provide programming for them of particular interest, again, under this goal, is special needs students and the LPAC.
Joel?
No, I don't think I have anything. Thank you.
I'm deeply involved as it is.
I'm good, thanks.
Thanks so.
The only question I have, you mentioned the NEASC is, and I don't know if we'll be getting a report on that or if there's something that at some point you could report out on the collaborative conference that you mentioned. I know you're not finished with the process, but.
I think Dr. Lepre will appreciate this response. Any time a bureaucracy is not knocking on your door, it's probably a good thing. They had offered the collaborative conference report before we left for the holidays. I have not heard anything from them. I'm eager to get it, but I'm not going to knock on that door. I'll wait until they offer that.
No, I understand.
Thank you very much.
Thank
I'm
you.
interested in the guidance piece.
Sure.
And I think that will be a real improvement.
I think so too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move on to committee discussion and votes to be taken. Can I have a motion to approve a grant from the American Home Foundation and Donald Shackelford to NPS English language learners for financial literacy curriculum in the amount of $5,714?
So moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Vote to approve the donation from Robin Giles to the Adopt a Lunch Tray program in the amount of $400.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
A vote to approve the donation from Nathan and Tracy Roberts to Nantucket Community Pool in the amount of $160.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
A vote to approve the December 10th, 2019 meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The December 10th workshop meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The December 10th executive session meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
We were quite busy that day.
We were.
December 17th, 2019 meeting minutes.
You didn't say.
We didn't all vote. Aye.
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 Okay.
And so moved for the next one.
Second.
Just keeping you honest.
Okay. December 17th, 2019 executive session meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Transfers and invoices.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Superintendent's report. Huh?
As it's easy when it's just us. We're not fighting over motions and.
One or the other is.
I think
Exactly.
we were missing one approval on the December 7th meeting minutes.
Yes.
So
The
aye,
regular
we need
meeting.
to say aye.
Yes.
Okay.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You tried.
Okay, just enrollment, January enrollment, you'll see that overall that's actually down 7 students. I think the numbers at the elementary school decreased by 3 and the middle school by, the intermediate school by 3, whereas Cyrus Pierce went up. Cyrus Pierce went down 1 and the high school stayed the same. So it's always interesting that, that there's movement at the holiday time.
Yeah, but that there's an awful lot of withdrawals. I'm just curious.
Yep.
It's the people who will be gone for longer than 15 days.
That's it. So they could be back on the 20th day.
But they have told us they will be gone for as long as 15, 17, and 22.
So you have to withdraw them and then
We withdraw and tell them,
Okay.
and we say it like,
you sure you want to do this?
maybe you won't get back in the classroom you were in, and do you understand that when the teacher says this?
So that go for your school too?
One of them, and who's going abroad and then also going to school there and then returning. Yep. And then 2 of them are actually moving on families.
Okay. Julie? Since you had 3.
I don't have any knowledge of people not moving away. It's all movement.
Yeah, one was a housing issue.
Yes, so it is moving away.
Interesting. Thank you. I just always like to get a feel for what's happening.
Not to tempt fate, but do you see this as a plateau?
Well, I think we saw from last October to this past October a slight decrease. So it's the first time in 10 years that we've had little to no growth. And I think, I won't speak for everybody, but I think it would be nice to have a flat line of growth for a while to catch our breath and be able to address some of the things without chasing the enrollment numbers with every addition that we have. So if you go back to the study that was done, I think it was done 7 years ago now, this is pretty spot on with what they predicted. It's pretty interesting because it's a hard thing to make those determinations, but they expected some leveling off. So perhaps that's what we're seeing.
Okay. Moving on to subcommittee.
I have nothing.
Have you been doing anything? Okay. Student council representative, Joel, you're up.
So January 14th, we're having a cornhole tournament in the lobby, so that should be pretty fun. It's just, we do the badminton tournament in March with like families and stuff, so this is just kind of this is just a student event, but it's just another fun thing to get everyone involved. It'll be a similar tournament to the badminton. And then little ways down the road in February, we're having a Valentine's Day dance in the cafeteria, so that should be fun. And the winter ball in December was a huge success. We had a huge turnout with upperclassmen, which typically with high school dances you don't get. You get a lot more underclassmen, so that was awesome.
Neat.
Nice. Where was that held, Joe?
At the Whaling Museum, they put on.
Nice.
That's really cool.
Thanks, Joel.
Mike, do you want to say something about the agenda?
Just want to, on the horizon, remind people that we do have a budget hearing next week at on Tuesday the 14th at 6 o'clock. And that's usually a PowerPoint that takes us through the things that you have discussed in smaller bites. And so we'll do that on the 14th, and then on the 21st, we have a second quarter budget update, and vote to approve the budget. And I'm not sure, John, whether you've had an opportunity to verify with the Veritas staff and whether they will come on the 21st, but that's a possibility. We'll give you an update on discussion with the school calendar on the 21st. And then one thing I would like to say that the FinCom presentation that was scheduled for the 16th, they called today and asked if we would move that to the 21st at 5 p.m. So that is right before the school committee meeting on the 21st, which should be fine. But, and then we'll find out if the Quiz Bowl students want to compete with us. Kate left, so But I believe that they will be looking forward to challenging Dr. Lepre et al.
Okay. Do we have anything else? Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.